I was born and raised here in Livingston, graduated from high school. After I got out of high school, I worked as a hunting guide, wrangler, and a packer, and a cowboy all over Montana and Alaska, and all over the West, in the rural West, without really any exposure to art. Growing up here in Livingston, at that time, when I had graduated from high school, the only art I would have ever seen would have possibly been Charlie Russell or Frederick Remington, or been exposed to in general. So I did that for about a decade, traveled all over and worked, and was never really happy. So one winter, I spent the winter in Gallatin Gateway, and then decided to take an art class during the winter. And so I took an art class, and then I took another art class, and then I started learning about all these other artists that had been, throughout the history of art, because I took a lot of art history, and it just opened up it just opened up a door that I had, or a path that I had to follow. And from that, after going to school and focusing primarily on art history, then after that, I just really didn't have a choice. I had to be an artist. Yeah, so that's how I ended up becoming a painter. So that happened when I was probably about 28 years old. So that would have been 10 years after I got out of high school. And then as a growing up here in Livingston at that time, I would doodle a lot and make cartoons and such. But going into the arts would not have been looked as a positive thing. Like, people didn't encourage one to do that. And if you did do that, you probably wouldn't get any praise, right? So that's really changed here. And I think that a lot of that is because a lot of different people have moved here with different ideas and such, which was different than when I grew up. And see, when I grew up, it was a railroad town. So, I mean, it was a blue-collar, Democrat, union, working town. I think the railroad employed around 1,500 people. So, be like, that many families. And then later, after the rail, in the 70s, it started when Tom McGuane moved here, and then Russ Chatham and Jim Harrison, and Gats Yorksburg, and even Brodigan. And then he attracted those people, and then they attracted, that was how Livingston became the way that it is now. That was the stimulus, I think. But anyway, both of these paintings here, and sort of dabbling with them. And oftentimes, I'll turn a painting upside down and look at it. So, for example, first I started out with a tree, and then typically when I'm painting, I look for diagonals, because what diagonals do is tend to lead you into the composition. And then I tend to replicate shapes. So I'm just going to say, here's the shape, this shape, that's the shape of the cloud. And what that does is that makes your eye go completely around the painting. But, so I haven't, I've been looking at these paintings here trying to figure out, because they're not quite working. A lot of times I look at paintings upside down. And actually, a lot of times I paint upside down. So, if I'm looking at this painting upside down, That way I can look at this painting in an abstract way, so that I'm just looking at shapes and colors and relationships between those, not necessarily trying to make that into a tree and a train or whatever. I'm just looking at blocks of color. So I've been looking at this painting for a while, and I think that this space right here needs to be somehow activated. Like, for some reason, that almost seems like a dead space to me. So I've been thinking about this for a few days. What I'm going to do is so I didn't know what I wanted to do to this space. Like, I could maybe put more definition in this cloud, or put some color in this cloud, so that would pull your eye, over to that way. But I've decided I'm going to put a bird in there. So just before you came here, I did these sketches here in pen, right? And I think I'm going to put that bird in this area right here, just so that activates that space. And so, okay, I'll just do it. So I'm gonna go like, and what I've got here, this is just sort of turpentined. Have that little sketch down there that I'm sort of looking at. And this is just, this is just going to be a sort of a drawing. Maybe you want that a little bit like this. And, you see what so, we have that's a bird's head. Right. Now I can see I'm going to have to make that wing bigger, like this. Well, I think what I want this to be is a bald eagle, if I can. Then we'll just take some of this here paint. Kind of a bald eagle has got kind of a brown body. Sometimes I twist my brush like that to get the paint in there. Okay, so you come down maybe a little bit more like this. And as I sort of messing up, the bird's going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And now I'm going to just step back and take a look at it. And once I make a decision like that, there's no turning back. Like, I can't get that off. I can't cover it up. It's there. So I've got to keep going with it. I happened to be out walking yesterday, and there was a bald eagle hovering right over my head. And his beak was definitely yellow. Well, and I don't know, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of that in there. I'm not sure if I get inspiration, but I really go out and I can just sort of relax and decompress. And then if I happen to see a bald eagle flying over the top of my head and I'm working on a painting like this and go, I need to activate that space, boom. That's kind of how I work. And when I started out with this painting, I mean, first I started out with this tree. So I painted that tree in. That's it. I didn't have anything else. So then I walked around and drove around trying to figure out how to, see here, activate that space to the right, because I just had a tree and this whole area here was blank. And so after about a week, and then while that's going on, I'm working on other canvases. I did a couple sketches of these train cars. And then I thought, well, maybe I could actually work that, work that in there. Then I worked that in there. And then I needed to do something with this side of the canvas. So then I, started thinking and had an old sketch here from last summer that I thought, wow, maybe I could just work that in there. And then I worked that in on the left-hand side of the canvas. Now, yeah, when I get home tonight, I'll look at a bird book and see if I'm even anywhere close. So, in actuality, probably this eagle wouldn't be like this reddish brown, but I'm going to go ahead and push that color because I've got blue here and I use sort of a reddish brown, that's working off the complementary color activity a little bit. Same way here on this tree, using a red tree, sort of, but you put that next to blue and boom. See, and once I go with this, with an acrylic painting, you can just sort of paint right over the top of it, but there's no way. If I tried to scrape that off, that would just smear a black, smear right there. That's permanent. So if I just ruined the painting, I just ruined it because there's no change in it, which is what art's supposed to be anyway. That's part of art. So this is going to come over here. So I'm just going to leave that like that. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. And I'll come back in the morning and see if that, if that's enough. I'll look at a bird book, make sure I can figure out with an eagle. Now, I'm going to do the same thing to this painting, but I'm not going to do it right now. Same thing, I've got the same thing going on with this painting. I've put this painting together. Here's a study. Oftentimes I'll do like a little study. So this study works, and this doesn't to me because I've got this big space right here, and I'm going to put an eagle there too, just so that I've got that. What I want when you look at it like a canvas is I want your eye to go around the entire canvas, and I want the canvas to pull you in. Yeah, no, it seems like my art is much tighter, and it's much more thought out now. Back in the day, so before 10 years ago, everything that I painted in one sitting. So whether it took 4 hours or it took 24 hours, I got the painting done in one sitting. And I did a lot, man. I'd get on a run and do 60 paintings, a short period of time. But now, like I'll have like these paintings that we were just looking at, that one I've been fiddling around with for like about 3 weeks. And I'll fiddle around with it for, a couple other weeks. So I've got a bunch of different paintings all going on at the same time. Yeah, and then tonight when I go home, I'll think about, Jesus, did I do the right thing? Okay, so when I started painting, well, I've always been attached to the West in general, but cottonwood trees. And so when I started painting when I was in my 20s, I started with cottonwood trees. And although I paint many different things, I just don't paint landscapes and cottonwood trees. That motif has always been in my repertoire. And there's, so for example, this painting, if it ever turns out and I get it right, and I've just numbered them. This will be number 231. That'll be the title of this painting. It'll be Cottonwood number 231. And cottonwood tree is, really, it's really representative of the northern plains and the northern Rockies. Montana has, 3 different kinds of cottonwoods. And they're so, they have a real figural element to them, to me. Like when you see a row of them, each one is different. And that almost looks like figures to me, or it has some sort of that aspect to it. And I consider myself, a Western artist. So what better way to represent the West than a cottonwood tree? Absolutely. Among other things. And the other thing, not only will when I want to be a contemporary artist. That's my goal. So when I'm I always try to incorporate a human element into the landscape, if it's a landscape. Because really there isn't any landscape anywhere that hasn't been touched by humans. So that's why you'll see also, like in all my landscapes, there's going to be a road or a power line or a fence row or a trailer house or whatever, because that's actually what's out there, well, I'll start out with like on this painting, I really like that tree. So I started out with that, but then you've got the rest of the painting to put together. Now, if it's much easier for me if I do take the time and actually draw the landscape out there, basically when I'm doing a sketch, I'm gathering information. And then I'm putting together a puzzle. And I'll derive information from several different sketches. The more information I gather out there sketching, the easier time I have putting the painting together. The less information, like on this painting I showed you, I did a tree, but then I didn't have any plan, right? So then I had to figure out all of this. But I'm just looking at this, shapes, spaces, and no matter what kind of subject that I have in the canvas, it still has to work compositionally. And no matter you can take the most realistic photorealism painting or the most abstract, non-representational painting. If they don't work compositionally, they aren't successful. You have to be able to, the relationships between all those shapes and spaces and colors. And What I'd like to have someday is an upside down show, because if a painting's successful, it'll look good upside down, sideways, you know. If it's a strong piece of artwork, no matter what, like if it's photorealism or abstract expressionism or whatever, you should be able to take that painting and put it upside down, and it should look good. And then sideways, it should look good, you know. And like this painting, I mean, and I paint upside down a lot too, but like if I flip this painting over, now I see, man, I got to do something with that space right there. There's no doubt in my mind. And then if I looked at it, you know, in this same way, you know, I'm just looking at shapes and colors. And my eye goes right here, but this seems like a very stagnant place. Now you can do a bunch of different things. Like I could put like a wild cloud up there, maybe with a little bit of this, just touch of this orange on it, just sort of pull your eye, you know, over there. But I'm going to go with another eagle. I'm layering. I put this color down first, and so I'm not going to cover that. I'm just keep letting pieces of this color that's underneath come through. Now, if you take a canvas like this right here, this is all completely bare canvas right there. That's just bare canvas that is coming through. That's the ground underneath. There's a lot of bare canvas in my paintings. Well, my grandmother was an artist, and then her father was an artist. And although very, very different art than I do now, but I was always really, really fascinated with their paintings, like when I'd see them and I'd be a little kid. And so then I had an interest in art, and through grade school, I did a lot of, sketches and cartoons and doodling, sort of. But then, as I said earlier, when I got into high school, that wasn't really the cool thing to do. So I didn't really do, I had an art class in high school and had a really good art teacher, but that just wasn't cool. So, and then when I got out of high school, I went into hunting and guiding and wrangling and packing and cowboying, working on oil rigs and all this other stuff. And it was only after 10 years that I really became interested in art, because I went to college and I learned about, Rembrandt or Van Gogh or Andy Warhol, and the significance that, art has in terms of humanity. I'm not really trying to make any statement in any paintings that I'm doing. I'm just saying, this is what I see, and this is how I'm going to portray it. But if I see, and like I said, the contemporary West is just, it's a land of rape and pillage. It always has been, and I'm going to portray that. So if that means, doing whatever we do as humans, I mean, what I want to do as an artist is portray what's actually happening at the time. And that's a big part of the West in general is, extraction. So I'm going to portray that. And same here too, I'm hopefully going to portray, some of the development that's going on, right, around here is, yeah. So yeah, I want to have in all my paintings a human impact. Even in my most pristine landscape, that's why you'll see an interstate running through it or whatever, Well, when you look at my art over the years, you'll see where I'm using different, color schemes, and some years are much darker So, there's a couple years in there where my paintings are just pretty much black and white. But when I'm pretty much just like on this painting looking at colors, and I'm playing with all the different rules of colors. Like warm colors come forward, cool colors recede. Well, I might swap that around and try to make cool colors come forward and warm colors recede. Complementary colors. Right here I've got yellow and sort of a violet purple. That's strictly complementary colors. So I'm playing with that all the time. And that's one of the things that I learned by studying art history in college, was learning about, that's what those, Impressionists did, and Post-Impressionists, and I mean, yeah. Just like having everything sort of work together, and, so your eye goes there, kind of. Around the entire painting, actually. See, now this branch right here, theoretically that should recede in the distance because that's blue. And blue recedes, warm colors come forward, blue colors recede. See, if I had actually made the tree, a little bit bluer back here, and then made this a warm color, it would really come forward. But I'm not going to change it. But that's interesting, right there. Because these branches here are yellow, so they should come forward, and this is, blue, so it should recede, but I've made it, by the way the branch sits. That's interesting. Have painted over the top of things. Yeah, or and now I'm thinking, a lot of the older paintings, like I said, I have in storage. Well over 1,000 canvases of, some of them now I really don't like. And I look at them and I'm thinking, if I just could paint over it, but you can't really, if I painted over this painting, I can really only change the colors. Like if I decide, okay, I'm gonna paint a house in here, right? Well, no matter what, you're always gonna see the mountain and the road in the house. So if I was gonna paint this painting over, I could maybe change the color. I could change the color of anything in here. And, but I still have to stay with like this road, have to stay with the road, have to stay with the general thing, and I could add something in here, right? Put it on top of that. To paint over the top of old oil paintings. I mean, structurally, you can end up with problems, paint detaching and cracking. And I'm thinking of going up there and just not even buying any more canvas, just go back into my old paintings, and some of them, need to be completely changed in colors, and some of them I might just need to add something, something just in there, just to. Yeah. No, I do it all. I mostly do oils. I've been doing more and more watercolors. In acrylic, I like, oils is an expensive deal. Like a painting like this, before I even start painting on it, that painting, before I even start painting on it, that's $200 right there. Like, before you even, and like with watercolor, I can, you can get a little watercolor set, and paper is cheap, and I like that. All, all pigment is in acrylic. I can paint with it, but I don't really like it. And all pigment is a medium with pigment suspended in it. And in oil, the medium is oil. So in acrylic, it's a polymer base. And with watercolor, it's this aqua. So it's just pigment that's suspended in some sort of medium. Well, with oil paint, the oil is very transparent. So that, what that does is that lets the light, like on this canvas here, the light comes through and it bounces through the color, and then it hits the ground, and then it comes back. So like that canvas there is, I started out, you know, that's that pink. That light is going through this, hitting the pink, and it's, you know, it's coming back out. Now with acrylic, the polymer absorbs light, so it gives a much flatter, the light is not able to bounce through it, and that's why acrylic paintings tend to look flatter when you do with them. Although in terms of representing society, acrylics are probably better because it's plastic. You know, that's what acrylic is. I might just have to switch to acrylics too. It's just... So at the end of the day, when I'm cleaning my brushes, I'll come over to a fresh canvas. Every one of these canvases, like this one here, and then I'll just clean my brushes like this. To get the extra paint off my brushes. Like that. So then that'll become part of the painting. Eventually when I paint on this canvas, I might look at that canvas and say, wow, you know, that is going to be a tree, or a part of a tree somehow, or whatever. But whatever I decide to paint, this can easily become an element. I might leave, you know, this orange might be a sunset, or who knows. Like that would become part of the painting. And like on this canvas here, this is all stuff that I've cleaned my brush, I know it is. Some of them I just start out of my head. Like that one over there. That one.